Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Mosley, staff. It's good to see everyone here. The time is now 2:35 p.m. on October 26, 2022. This is the Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting. Next slide. We'll start with the mission. The BAC mission is to advise and make recommendations to the commission and director on issues related to bicycling in the city, including but not limited to amendments to the bike plan, bicycle safety and education, implementation of the bike plan, development of strategies for funding projects related to bicycling, and promoting public participation in bicycling. The BAC vision is by 2027, the city of Houston will be a safer, more accessible, goal level friendly bike city. Next slide. All right, we'll start with the roll call of our members. Tom Compson.
Present.
Chair Tom Compson, sorry about that. Vice Chair Alejandro Perez.
Present.
Thank you. Tracy Alexander. All right. Leah Chambers.
Present.
Thank you. Adam J. Williams.
Present.
Carl B. Salazar.
Present.
Commander Christine Anthony Miller.
Present.
Beth Martin. Lisa Griff.
I'm here.
Trevor Reichman.
I'm here.
Jessica Wiggins.
Present.
Johanna Mahmood.
This is Aubin Phillips for Johanna.
All right, thank you, Aubin. Nick Hillier. Judith Villarreal. Amar Mohite. Mike Van Dusen. I think I see Mike, but I need, did you hear? Mike Van, yeah, okay. All right, thank you. Anna Ramirez Herta. Nikki Knight. Robin Holzer. And Vion McReynolds. All right. We have 10 members present. We need 11 for quorum.
Hey, this is Amar, and I was present. I didn't unmute myself.
Oh, okay. Well, we have Amar. That makes 11. We have quorum. Is there any other members I may have missed during roll call? All right. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Microsoft meeting instructions. The Teams meeting instructions. The agenda slides can be found on our website at houstonbikePlan.org/BAC. You can join by phone 936-755-1521 using ID 714-820-151 #. Next slide. Some Microsoft Team meeting instructions. Please be if you're on the phone, please use *6 to mute yourself and wait to be recognized by the chair. If you are on Microsoft Teams, you can send a message in the chat. Next slide. All right, we have a robust agenda. You have it before you. We'll start with director's report. Next slide.
Thank you, Brandon. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Jennifer Osland. I'm Deputy Director of the Planning Department, filling in for David Fields, who couldn't be here today. I just wanted to remind everybody, as Brandon did, that the agenda is always available at houstonbikeplan.org/BAC in advance of the meeting. And wanted to remind everybody that the public is invited to speak under agenda item 4, public comment. You'll have up to 2 minutes to speak, and if ever that you can't make it to the meeting, either virtually or in person, we do always accept written comments. If you get them to us before I want to say 2 p.m. the day before the meeting, we will read your comments into the record during the public comment session. And then just a reminder that item 10, open forum, is really just for committee members to discuss any items that maybe weren't on, that have come up. So just a reminder, public comment is under item 4 today. And as Brandon said, please wait to be recognized by the chair. You can sign up in the chat or let us know if you're here in person if you want to speak, and the chair will recognize you, and then you can make your comments. And if you're on a phone, *6 is usually how you mute and unmute yourself. So if you have any questions about this ever, you can always call us at the planning department at 832-393-6600 or visit our website at houstonplanning.com. Thank you, and that's all I had.
Thanks, Jennifer. Ready? Okay. I had 3 topics I wanted to cover today. The first one is an explanation. If I look hot and bothered from time to time during the meeting, it may be that we're having a robust discussion, but more likely it's hot flashes, and I'm having one right now. And they are a common side effect for hormone treatment, which I'm undergoing for prostate cancer. And I think I mentioned this a year ago, but this is kind of my PSA for any humans. Get your annual checkup. It's an important thing. And if you're a male human over 40, or if you know one that is, then part of that checkup should include a digital exam. And for those who know what digital means, it's this kind of digital, and a PSA test. That's very important for early detection. So just stuff on that. Rumor has it that a long-awaited addition to the bikeway system was completed while I was out of town, and that's the MKT spur, which connects the White Oak Bayou Trail to the Heights Trail near Studi Park, and that's definitely worth celebrating. I just got back at 1 a.m. today, so that might explain some of my brain fog. But I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. But to me, it's symbolic of the old versus new way that we're getting things done here in Houston. The old way, that project, I lose track. I think it's been at least 10 years, in making or not making. And to me, at that, when that symbolized the way the city got things done, or actually didn't get things done back in those days. And if it wasn't overt resistance, it was passive resistance, and projects had a way of languishing on people's desks and just not getting done. It's great to see how we're getting things done now. It really is. And this project is symbolic of that. It's a pretty involved project. If you see it, it's not easy. It looks easy on a map, but when you actually get out there and see what's involved, there's a lot of dirt being moved. So that's a big deal. But the partnership between the city and Houston Parks Board and other agencies in the city and county, not only that project, but so many others that are getting done, is so encouraging. It's really exciting to see. And to me, that was a big factor I pointed out in my comments, or the survey to the renewal application for the bicycle friendly communities, which if you haven't participated in that survey, I urge you to do so. I think there's a link on here at the end of the presentation about that. But I'm very hopeful that we will make silver level, not only for what we're getting done, but how we're doing it. The wonderful change in attitudes among elected officials, among staff. I mean, across the board here, it's just really great to see. And I'm hopeful that the league will recognize that. And the only other thing I wanted to raise was this. Go Astros. Okay, so we could move on to the minutes.
Yes.
And I'll just throw out, if everyone had a chance to look at them, I didn't, so I'll yield to the committee on this. But if anyone would like to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Leah. And can we go ahead and take a vote, or do we need to have discussion? I'm a little weak on my Robert's rules. All right, let's go ahead and vote then. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We go next slide. We're now in the public comment section. The public can speak. You can send in written comments to the BAC, to the email at bac@houstontxgov by 2 p.m. the day of the BAC meeting. Comments will be read aloud by staff during the meeting. You can also comment by phone by dialing 936-755-1521 using ID 714-820-151 #. Also press do not forget to press *6 to unmute and when called upon the chair. If you're joining us via Microsoft Teams, you can type your name in the chat and let us know what you'd like to comment. You'll be called upon. At this time, we did not receive any written comments, Chair. So Sharon, is anyone signed up in the chat to speak?
Not at this time.
All right, hearing none, we can move forward through the agenda. Next, we have Livable Places, a presentation about Livable Places by our principal planner, Savita Bandy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Svidha Bandy, and I'm a principal planner with the Planning and Development Department, and I'm also the lead for the Livable Places project. I'm here today to present an overview of the Livable Places project and to create awareness and receive feedback. I won't get into recommendation details, but that information is available at letstalkhouston.org for public review. It is exciting to see some of our Livable Places Action Committee members on the Bicycle Advisory Committee as well. For those of you who don't know, Chapter 42 is the ordinance under which subdivision development in the city is governed, and it came into effect in 1982. Of course, we need occasional updates to make sure that the ordinance promotes current city priorities. Launched in the fall of 2020, the Livable Places Initiative and Action Committee is creating opportunities within our development standards that encourage housing variety and affordability. Next slide, please. And the next one. Thank you. More specifically, Livable Places is paving the way to make Houston's neighborhood more equitable, creating more accessible, diverse, and inclusive neighborhoods with greater variety of housing and transportation choices. It's making walkable by creating safer, more walkable neighborhoods that are less car dependent with better access to transit and bike facilities. We're making it affordable by creating a greater variety of housing options at more attainable price points for all Houstonians. Next slide, please. Livable Places builds on and is implementing existing planning efforts and community identified goals. Many of these goals are taken directly from Plan Houston, Resilient Houston, Climate Action Plan, and such. Next slide, please. In the case of Plan Houston, Livable Places is implementing community identified goals like grow responsibly and connect people to places, nurture safe and healthy neighborhoods, and foster an affordable city. Next slide, please. In the case of Resilient Houston, Livable Places is implementing community identified goals like protect and strengthen neighborhoods through infill development, review and amend lot size requirements, and make streets 100% safe for all Houstonians, or provide transit options for affordable neighborhoods. In the case of Climate Action Plan, Livable Places is assisting in the implementation of community identified goals like build and retrofit complete transit-oriented neighborhoods by updating policies and standards to incentivize development of housing and services near transit stops and trails, phasing out parking minimum requirements, and supporting infill development so that there is greater return on our existing infrastructure investments that are made by Metro and the City of Houston and Parks Board and all the investments we make in or bike share facilities and bike lanes. Lastly, livable places is next slide, please. Lastly, livable places is trying to incentivize the development of more homes in walkable neighborhoods. A clear preference of survey respondents, about 54% out of 17,000 respondents from Harris County recent housing needs assessment um, prefer prefer walkable neighborhoods. Livable Places is taking on the task, next slide please, taking on the tasks to reduce future sprawl, the status quo for most recent development throughout the region as seen on this map. Largely developing in the greenfield areas around the city increases cost of infrastructure and maintenance, increases impervious areas, increases reliance on cars, and increases stormwater runoff. Next slide, please. Livable places will encourage building up within the city to have positive impacts on multiple fronts, like those referenced in this exhibit. Reduce development pressure on greenfield areas, maximize the use of existing infrastructure, encourage use of multimodal transportation options, and facilitate safer, more walkable, amenity-rich neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Livable places will do this with respecting and not overriding any active deed restrictions, nor interfering with minimum lot size and building line ordinances that exist today. Next slide, please. Now let us take a look at the housing types that Livable Places is trying to encourage more of or making changes to. I'll go over them individually, but mainly these are the 4 types we are focusing on. Next slide, please. So the first one I'm going to discuss is a second dwelling unit. It is an additional dwelling unit on a single family lot that is located above a garage or within a separate structure from the main house, also called accessory dwelling unit, granny flats, or garage apartments. Currently, there are restrictions of a maximum building size for this second unit if detached, but not when attached to the main home. We propose to remove this size limitation and also propose right-sizing the parking requirements based on the unit size. Next one, please. The next one is narrow lot development is a single family home located on a narrow lot that fronts a street and ideally has a rear alley or parking access. Narrow lots could also develop with shared driveways or with flag lot configuration. Neighborhoods across the city are seeing these types of housing as existing lots subdivided into narrow front-loading lots with direct vehicular access from the street via wide driveways. We are proposing changes to require vehicular access from alleys or shared driveways when possible, with additional incentives, or otherwise encourage narrower and fewer driveways to the public street. The next one, please. Courtyard style development is a cluster of single family homes located around a privately maintained shared courtyard, sometimes called a pocket neighborhood. Our current development rules do not permit this style of development, but it is increasingly in demand in many cities throughout the country. There will be no minimum lot size and will have a maximum height restriction to keep the development to a neighborhood scale. This development type will also allow the required parking space per lot to be on site within a common parking area. Next slide, please. Multi-unit residential is, it could be a triplex, multiple duplexes on a site, or a fourplex or multiplex with no more than 8 dwelling units. This development type would reintroduce triplexes and quadruplexes that were popular in Houston around the mid-century, such as in Montrose. Over time, our development rules have made constructing these types of these type of housing more cumbersome or infeasible. We propose to revise the multifamily requirements when meeting specific conditions to hopefully reintroduce this type of small-scale multifamily housing in Houston. Like the second dwelling units, these will also propose minimum parking requirements based on the unit size. Next slide, please. You may ask, why are these changes coming? What are we avoiding with these changes? Under the current ordinance, narrow front-loading lot development is very common. While it initially looks okay, there are some underlying consequences. Mass development of narrow front-loading lots creates streets without any room for on-street parking. With the limited design options available, the garage is right up front and creates a phenomena of unusable sidewalks with vehicles in the driveway, limiting walkability. Paving of the entire lot width for driveway interferes with stormwater detention facilities and leaves no room for green space. Additionally, if there are bike lanes on such streets as shown in the picture, it further makes the use of these city investments unsafe for public use. Next slide, please. Encouraging these housing types means that we need to reduce parking requirements near high-frequency transit and high-comfort bike facilities to make building these housing types more affordable. This only means that the city won't require minimum parking requirements near transit-served areas. People will be allowed to provide parking based on their needs. By easing parking restrictions in some of these areas, a more diverse style of housing can be built that can be more affordable, promote more social interaction within the community, and help encourage use of our available multimodal transit investments. Next slide, please. Almost done. In addition to changing parking rules, other rules also need to be modified to encourage these types of housing. These amendments are mostly related to allowing more housing units on smaller lots, allowing different types of open spaces, allowing for narrower and fewer driveways, and allowing more ways to access on-site parking. Next slide, please. Livable Places is in the process of making these development code changes now based on input received so far. We're still taking input, so it is not too late to share your thoughts. Please visit Livable Places page on Let's Talk Houston to get detailed information on the Action Committee's work and recommendations, and please provide feedback. You can use the QR code shown to access the website and visit us using the website letstalkhouston.org/livable-places. Here is next slide, please. Here is our timeline for the changes. Our process originally started back in 2020, and we are currently drafting the required ordinance changes. We are expecting for the final recommendations to be before the City Council in March of 2023. With that, I'm ready for questions, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present today. I request that you spread the word about these recommended changes, these suggested changes, and we'll be happy to meet with any communities who are willing to get more information. If you have additional questions, please do not hesitate to write to livableplaces@houstontx.gov or contact us via 832-393-6600. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Savita. That was a great presentation, and I'm happy to see the city doing this. It's much needed. I think there'll be, a lot of benefits that you listed within your presentation. I am curious as to how it interfaces with the bikeway plan, the Houston bike plan and so forth. I think you made a glancing reference to that. And of course, there's the explicit reference to making it more walkable, which is certainly consistent, but maybe a somewhat tangential goal to what we're here. Interested in your thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you for that. What we are proposing is, along with all of the changes that we are proposing, we are also encouraging or proposing market-based parking when there are transit-served areas. Like, for example, if there is high-frequency bus routes or high-comfort bike lanes that are existing or programmed, we are proposing market-based parking within a half-mile or quarter-mile distance. So that's a big change for the development and the type of development that can happen. And I think it will help the city move in the right direction, which is also the goal of the bike plan.
When you say market-based, does that mean you essentially leave it to the developers?
Yes. So there will be no city minimums, which is a big consequence of the type of developments we see today is
Right.
2 parking spaces per unit, which may not be needed if you're right next to a high frequency bus route.
Any other comments or questions from the Jessica?
This is solving my biggest pet peeve in Houston ever. It bothers me so much to see the front loading residential lots being built with no other access for a vehicle because it creates such an unsafe and unneighborly interface with the street. So this is really exciting for me. You mentioned specifically around the narrow lot development. One of the challenges I realize is, you know, if there's not rear access for vehicles or an alley, that's a really difficult change to make. So what are the incentives for developers? And I'm assuming this is applying to pieces of property that are being developed for the first time and properties that can be redeveloped in the future, right? So what are those incentives to get developers to maybe introduce an alley where before they could just use the street?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. So if there is an alley, one of the recommendations, and again, these details are in the website, but one of the recommendations is to definitely take alley access if there is an alley. If there are mid-block developments and there is no alley, then there are options like they can do a shared driveway or they can do a flag lot development. Predominantly what it means is that one driveway, every lot comes with one driveway if they're redeveloping. So just use that one driveway to provide access to both the lots. So you split the lots like that on a flag shape, and there is only one driveway that gives that garage access to both the units. So that is one way to solve the issue. And mostly what we see today is these 50 by 100 lots get subdivided into 25 by 100 lots with that narrow width. So that's the problem we are trying to solve. The incentives that we are providing is density. So there is a discussion that we had, and they're allowed to do reduced parking and they're allowed to do higher density.
Just want to add, I think we're also, because we did get pushback from, you know, the front loaders, the developers like those, and I think we've heard from home buyers that they like them too. So one compromise and what we're proposing, and I think it's still in there, is a shared driveway approach. So you could still each have a garage and a driveway, but there would only be one curb cut. And so you would have to share that. So it's just really from the pavement to the property line. So at least we would have reduced the, you know, crossing the sidewalk and also leave more room for parking. So that's
Thank
in
you.
there too. So yeah, so we're not, we'll still have the narrow lots with the garages in the front in some situations.
In some situations, but instead of 2 drives, it will be one driveway that forks out and gives access to both lots.
I've got a friend who lives in West End in a townhouse, which I don't know, I think it's maybe 60 feet wide, the original lot, but there's four units on it and they all share one driveway. It comes into kind of a courtyard in the middle, a paved courtyard, and feeds each of their garages. And I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted, sorry, Jessica, were you? Oh. I just wanted to thank the whole planning staff. This is so exciting to see. I, a few weeks ago, attended the American Planning Association Policy and Advocacy Conference, and there were a lot of sessions around the housing crisis and sort of the missing middle and a lot of these standards and converting it. And so it's just
so exciting to see a lot of the things that they were talking about here already in process.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to thank you all for that. It's exciting.
Thank you.
Just one more comment. I think we are really, the committee's done with their work, and we are asking for comments and feedback, and we're also trying to reach out to more groups. So if anyone on the committee has ideas on how we can reach more than just homeowners in subdivisions, we want to, this is about renters too, providing more opportunities for renters or for people who want smaller units. We know demographics, trends, household sizes are shrinking and shrinking. And so, there are a lot of people out there who, maybe only have one car or don't want to own a car because it's too expensive. There's a lot of reasons. So if anyone on the committee has thoughts, let us know. You can email us or call us. Organizations we can reach out to or events we can attend and hand out information and talk to people. We want to make this, and get everybody involved in pushing this forward. Thank you.
I just have one last question. You said that this is going to be citywide, right? Okay, and in
Yes.
the only instance where this wouldn't be an option is where deed restrictions prohibit it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
So I have a different experience with developers, and not all developers are like looking to collaborate with the city. So I feel like some of these are like they're great ideas for sure, but maybe like it'll be more expensive to them because all they see is money. So what are you doing to kind of like stop developers from like taking advantage or looking more towards like how they're profiting versus how they're serving the community they're building in? Like delaying projects, like you said, you're drafting new ordinance language and it's coming next year. If they know this is coming, then they're going to try to squeeze as many things as they can to kind of build what they need to do to get their money and then move on to the next area or whatever. So what is being done in that aspect?
We are already having conversations with a lot of different applicants and developers and people who are already developing with their front loaders. We are already having a conversation, making everyone aware that these rules will eventually change. So yes, it could happen that there could be an influx of applications. It always happens whenever any ordinances change. But we are making, I think the incentives we are providing, like additional density, only one car per the smaller units, and other incentives will help in encouraging people to do this. We also accomplished changes to the drainage and detention requirements, which was a big hurdle in having shared driveway developments. So that has been worked out. So now I think it is looking more favorable for developers to do shared driveway developments even without the incentives.
Just want to tack on also, we've been working closely with Public Works to make it easier to use the alleys. We hear a lot of complaints that the requirements are maybe squishy or unknown or expensive, and so we've been working with them. We're still working with them to make it easier so that developers want to use the alley. All of this is still in the works, and we're not compromising drainage. I mean, we want to make that clear, but what we have found is shared driveways use the same amount or less concrete than front loaders. And it really, when the detention rules are put in place, it wasn't, but that didn't come up, I guess. So we're not trying to compromise drainage, but we're just trying to even the playing field so people don't have, so doing the right thing doesn't cost you more.
Okay, so then basically like you believe that the language you're coming up with is like incentive enough to like convince developers to like hold off on projects they want to try and squeeze by?
We hope so.
Okay.
Well, we are at the Planning Commission is calling out projects that we think could be better and trying to encourage, staff tries to encourage them during, behind the scenes before we get to commission, but commissioners we find are speaking up more and more and asking, in that asked at the meeting, why can't you do something, reduce the number of driveways? So
Okay.
we're
that'd be
trying to,
better.
and there, we have developers on the committee, so these rules, they participated in these rules, and we've, they've raised good issues, and we've been trying to respond to them, and so far so good. And so, yeah, so it's.
Okay, well, there is conversation with developers about this. Okay.
Are there any other comments or questions in the chat? Brandon?
Yes, this is Adam. I have a quick comment I would like to share. First of all, I want to congratulate you on this initiative and the work that Livable Places is doing. You asked for maybe some feedback on how this might be received by the greater community, and I think one of the kind of or overlooked benefits here, by getting rid of all these front-loading driveways, you're actually potentially freeing up more street parking. And I know we don't all love giving more street parking, but it's freeing up curb space that could be used for bike lanes, for other infrastructure, but also kind of give some street parking back instead of just seeing these driveways everywhere. So as a way to sell it to some potential naysayers who might say, oh, we need more parking in the neighborhood for local business and all that, these types of developments would actually make more street parking potentially available as well.
Thank you for the comment. That's a great point.
This is Anna Ramirez. One last comment as well. In terms of there is a big relationship, of course, to Vision Zero. And I think if that could be leveraged or just, articulated better in terms of what the safety improvements or safety impact and contribution to City of Houston's Vision Zero, I think that would be very, very powerful. We know that driveway consolidation does that, and so that could be an important thing as you try to think about, including other statistics, crash reduction factors, and other things that can help better articulate it to different audiences. So I think that that's another thing that you can consider that would also create that synergy with City of Houston Vision Zero. And with that, Chair Thompson, I'm present.
Thank you, Anna. Leah?
Thank you, Chair. I just had one more comment kind of to your question about like, how does this affect our bike network and our bike plan? I think this type of development pattern that you all are trying to do is really a big part of creating a more active street life, creating more vibrant spaces, creating safer places for people to be out. And it kind of cascades into all of the things that we're trying to do with the bikeways, as well as walking and all the other things that we kind of are hoping to see. And I think it's just pairing our goals with a development pattern that fosters that more.
Okay, Trevor? Did you have a comment?
Jessica had asked my earlier question about whether or not this was citywide or whether it was just applicable to pilot neighborhoods, for example, the Complete Community program. But glad to hear that it's in fact citywide. So thank you.
Thank you so much for listening, and please be ambassadors to these rules, and please help us by providing feedback in the Let's Talk Houston website.
One quick question. Is this available in Spanish?
That's a great question. We're working on some Spanish material. The exhibits that I shared, the blue exhibits, those are available in Spanish. Okay. But I'll reach out with more information in Spanish if you would like that.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Savita. We're going to move forward in with the agenda. Before we get here, so that's my mistake on that slide. We want to talk about the Number 6 is the BAC 2023 expiring terms and reappointments. 10 committee members are set, terms are set to expire on January 1st, 2023. Emails have been sent out to those members. As a reminder, any existing BAC member who would like to be considered for renomination must submit their request and resume to myself, staff Brandon Mosley, by the close of business October 31st, 2021. Staff will take in consideration, will take a list of attendance these past 2 years in consideration for recommendation to the mayor. And so we appreciate you guys and your service. Next is number 7, strategic bikeways. Hold on.
Good afternoon, members of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. This is Peter Eccles, staff. I am here to present on the city's strategic bikeway investment fund. Next slide, please. So just as background, I'm sure everybody remembers that the BAC approved the use of 10% of the annual budget for bikeways design and construction for strategic investments outside of the corridors identified through the prioritization exercise for fiscal year 2023. That is $110,000. Today, we have an update to share on the first 2 of those projects, some preliminary design scope, as well as some cost estimates. So first is the existing crossing of the White Oak Trail at North San Jacinto Street in downtown. The scope of improvements there would be to restripe the existing crosswalk and add 6 high visibility K71 bollards to the existing median refuge island. The cost estimate provided by Houston Public Works for this is $9,184. And the second of these improvements is to upgrade Main Street to a shared on-street bicycle facility between Lamar Street Bikeway in downtown and the Gray Street Bikeway in Midtown. The scope of improvements there would be shared lane markings. Bicycles may use full lane signage, as well as Houston Bikeways wayfinding signage. The cost estimate for that improvement provided by Houston Public Works is $38,232. Using these numbers, the remaining bikeway balance for this fund after those 2 will be $62,584. There's 2 photos at the bottom showing you examples of the sorts of improvements you can expect. That concludes my report. Available for any questions.
I have a couple questions, Peter. I mean, these both look like good projects. I've ridden Main Street in that stretch before, and I think that would be a good addition. And of course, that crossing it for the White Oak Trail that'd be a great improvement because it's pretty tough. How did you come up with these 2 projects among the many other opportunities for improvement around the city? What else are you looking at, given that there's a significant remaining balance? And I guess that's for this fiscal year. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. So we came through a variety of sources to identify these. We heard feedback directly from some of the members of the Bicycle Advisory Committee, from members of Bike Houston, who came up with a list of 20 sort of short-term fixes. That was part of the consideration as well as some input from staff. So sort of a variety of sources that led to staff discretion on selecting these first 2.
And I assume you are actively looking at other potential projects that we could spend the balance on. Mm-hmm. And remind me again, what is the fiscal year? Is it July through June? Is that how that works?
Yes, that's correct.
So we still have some time. And do you have to get the money spent this year? Is that how that works?
That's my understanding, though. Folks smarter than me handle every last one of those budget sort of things.
So, I mean, so you are looking at some other potential projects that we could squeeze in during.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Are you looking for an endorsement from the committee on these 2 projects?
So this is this item does not require action from the Bicycle Advisory Committee. This is an update that we committed to when we first presented the Strategic Bikeway Fund, but this program is inevitably under staff discretion.
Okay.
So we did cover these in the infrastructure subcommittee meeting. David presented these and we went over them. He gave us, I think, a couple of ideas, and I think these were the top ones that we agreed on. What I try to remember about the K71, are those concrete barriers or are they just the plastic reflector ones?
Those are plastic barriers, but they're a bit wider. The visual impact is that they sort of look like concrete barriers, but they're plastic. And in today's very high cost construction environment, that is, you know, we're going to get a lot more bang for our buck out of that.
Okay.
Thank you. I might have missed it. What's the timeline for implementing?
We do not have a timeline for construction on these yet. You know, the mobilization construction crews, it can vary a lot. So I'm hopefully we can get you a better timeline for that in the near future. We don't have one yet.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions, Brandon, do you see?
So you did mention that there was, what is it, 110,000 that we have for the budget?
Yes.
So what can we do with the other money that we have left over?
There is a range of things. I don't have detailed cost estimates for all of the other things that were considered in the infrastructure
But they were
subcommittee.
kind of like being looked at and just like, okay, I can use it. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Look forward to hearing about that.
Definitely. If there are no further questions, then thanks everybody very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, thank you. We'll move forward in the agenda. Moving on to bikeway fatalities and serious injuries year to date. So we'll go back.
Okay, next slide. Thank you so much. Okay, so the year-to-date report for 2022 as of Monday, the 17th, well, actually, as of this Monday, so far we year-to-date have had 11 to, I would say the AM or at least lighted conditions, 9. I will say that it should be noted that our year-to-date numbers actually total the end of year totals for 2021. So we ended 2021 with 11 and now we have 11. So let's pray for no more in 2022. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, thank you. Year to date, this is at the end of September. The fatals are year to date. I kind of changed that, but just to let you know the rest of it. So for those crashes that have petacyclist listed as one of the units, we had 295 total crashes. July's report showed North and West Side were the top 2 divisions, but at the end of September, North is number 2 and has been surpassed by Central. There are 2 divisions with over 30 crashes each, and West Side is creeping up with 28. As it is one of our, or really the largest geographical division, it's no surprise that it's up there, but they're usually in the top numbers. It should also be noted, I run a report that talks about intersections, and thus far there are no intersections that have multiple accidents. Next slide is our roll call of our fatalities. And that concludes my report unless there are any questions.
I chatted briefly with Commander prior to the meeting, and obviously these numbers are very concerning to see. They're definitely going the wrong way. They're, you know, we're trying to approach 0, not going higher. So it's troubling to see. And I did ask her about the follow-up, and it is challenging, particularly where the, you know, it's challenging to assign causation. And it's especially challenging where the motorist is essentially hit and run in a number of those. So other than to express my concern, I don't know what else to say about it. It's really tough to see numbers like this. Any other observations from the group?
No, I will say just to also, in 2019, there were 16 year-to-date fatalities. In 2020, it went down to 8, obviously with COVID. We had less cars on the road. I think we obviously had more people probably out walking, but with less cars, less fatalities. 2021 was 11, and now we're currently at 11. So definitely don't want to reach 2019 numbers, so we're still below that.
Yeah.
Commander Christine, I'm sorry, still fairly new, and I can't remember if we correlate these to the high injury network at all. Do we know I guess, does it give us any information for like Vision Zero or things based on these specific ones? I mean, I'm sure we can map them on the high injury network, but do we do any analysis on that?
High injury, I don't know that particular.
Okay.
Yeah. I also know, I mean, as far as like our vehicular crimes division, they're as part of a Vision Zero plan, but I know that's fatality, so I'm not sure if there's other
Okay.
things.
Just curious. Brandon, do you
That-
know?
Yeah, I think we can definitely, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar, I'm not up to speed on what's happening with our Vision Zero program, but we can definitely find that out. I'm sure we are. but
Yeah,
I
was
will
just
confirm.
Yeah,
and get
because
back
with
with you.
the high injury network
Yeah.
mapping that goes with Vision Zero, I wasn't sure how those were talking to each other,
Yeah.
kind of in real time potentially. So, thank you.
Okay, Trevor?
Yeah, my question is there any follow-up to the hit and run involving Shane McKinney during the Pride Ride? Are there any suspects or leads or anything?
So I know that David posted the investigator's card on Facebook and asked anyone who was there that night to please contact Officer Robles. And so, you know, to my knowledge, no, I have not looked up the report, but I am in communication, you know, with our vehicular crimes division. I know they're certainly asking for anyone who was there to make, you know, to get statements. You know, the cyclist who followed, unfortunately, there was no, other than the vehicle suspect description, there was no license plate. I know, you know, some of the media putting out some of the word, just really calling upon community right now, you know, but to my knowledge, no, unfortunately, no one has been identified at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Ready to move on? Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Jessica.
Not sure if I should like say. I just wanted to bring to folks' attention, if they don't already know, we know from the education subcommittee that TxDOT has grant opportunities for bicycle education. But they are also, you know, and was news to me last week, also now offering grant opportunities for infrastructure changes around intersections that have had at least one severe crash of anyone. And those applications, simple kind of drawing out what you think you want are due on Friday. And a city can apply, management district can apply, TERS can apply. Just wanted to put that on everyone's radar, that's available.
What program is that again?
HSIP. Someone's going to have to do me a favor and tell me what that stands for, but
Highway Safety Improvement, is that it?
that sounds about as good as I could.
We'll go with
Yeah.
that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and it doesn't, at least not at this point, have to be anything robust. It's just truly did it have at least a severe crash between, I think, the years of 2019 and 2021? You know, and what are your proposed recommendations and why? And they have a list of countermeasures that they would consider making adjustments to intersections or streets to be able to address that safety concern.
And who's administering that?
TxDOT.
Okay.
Joe said it stands for Highway Safety Improvement Program.
Okay. Good guess. The deadline is Friday.
Deadline is Friday, yes.
Okay.
All right, we're almost through with the agenda, so we'll start with the quarterly updates. All right, next slide. So we'll start with the bikeway project updates here. Next slide. So here we have the City of Houston projects, some notable things. Shepherd Durham, Dixon to Washington Avenue is has moved to in progress with construction. West Park, Oxford to Lawndale Street, Telephone to Forest Boulevard is also in progress. I believe Lauren or someone from Public Works is on the line. If you have any comments for them. Next slide. All right, we have precinct 1. I believe Omar is on. If you have any questions or concerns for any updates, total mileage of 80.3 miles, total completion of 22, total construction of 21.62 miles, and in study/design about 37 miles. Next slide. I don't know if George is on, but we didn't get an update for precinct 2. But once we hear back from George, we'll make sure we update the slides and we'll move forward with those projects. Next slide. Also, with Houston Park Board, we haven't heard back from them as well, but I know Lisa's been pretty busy. So once we get her updated information, we'll get those updated.
Hey, Lisa, I did have a quick question. What's the status of the Sims, the new section of Sims between Buffalo Speedway and Scott?
That one, I'll have to follow up with you. I know they're having to look at a detour for a certain segment of it, but I'll follow up and get back to you.
It'd be great. Thanks.
Next slide. With Metro, really no significant updates. Equipment's at 100% design. Cavalcade Phase 2 is completed with construction. Next slide. For as TERS, as management districts, no update from the management district. This Walnut Bend was supposed to be completed by October 2022, but once we get those updates, we'll let the committee know. Next slide. I don't know if Susan is on, but if she is, she can answer any questions. But here's the updates for the TERS. Next slide. And we'll get updates from TxDOT from their side. Ana Ramirez Hertz, are you on? If you have any updates.
Basically, I think we're still the same thing is ongoing. We're still working on the permit on the I-10 con to Westcott, and I know there's been some conversations on that. So I think we're kind of continuing to wait on that.
That's the railroad, Anna.
Sorry? Yeah, the
railroad.
railroad. That's a famous railroad. I know we all contend with that, but that's still ongoing. Go ahead, Mike. Oh, sorry, Chair.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Mike, do you have
you've been hearing?
Yeah. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Anna, what types of comments have you been hearing?
You know, there is some interest by some folks to, think about maybe considering other alternatives. I've heard there have been some outreach to, I don't know if he's in here today. I don't see him. Maybe to David Field. There's been some interest on maybe rethinking the project. We are awaiting the permit. We have already some design made. So I think those conversations, I haven't been necessarily involved in it. I know that maybe David Fields may know some of that. But nothing, nothing that I've heard that I could share. I haven't been in those conversations, but I think eventually, if there's any other interest on behalf of the community, we could always kind of bring it back also to this body to discuss, what is the, I mean, I think initially this project came from the community, but of course, the community interest may have changed. I'm not sure. As of now, we're moving forward. We're waiting for the railroad permit, but if anything gets a bit more pressing, or that I am more fully aware of what the conversations are, we'd be happy to come and bring it to this group and see if there are any thoughts or any preferences on that. I know that there's been some conversation on that. I do also know that, I mean, I don't see him here, but Mr. Nunez, Mr. Emmanuel Nunez, I think maybe most of you guys know, he's very excited. As you guys know, one of the two bridges of the tail of two bridges is actually one of the bridges that TxDOT is actually in the process of designing and already has funds to build. And that would, and he's reached out. This is a not sure, Chair, if this is a bit of a segue, but I thought it might be of interest. He's reached out to talk about possibilities in the Rutland Detention Basin and extending some of the trails there. So we are having those conversations with Mr. Nunez, Mr. Emmanuel Nunez. I don't see him here. But I think maybe some of you are familiar with the tale of two bridges. Well, one of the bridges is funded. That's the TxDOT bridge. And I think he's interested in maybe thinking about other improvements. And I think we're going to be meeting in the next couple of weeks to better understand what he's interested in.
Yeah, that's great on it. And the tech stop bridge, is that the one that lines up with Rutland?
Yeah, that bridge, Mr. Nunez mentioned that was his inspiration to think,
Okay.
and because it was funded, that he was inspired to then think about other bridge, which was the Patterson Bridge that was unfunded. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that's a great one too. Well, maybe we should add the Rutland Bridge to this list here since it is a tech stop project.
Agree.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Leah.
It's okay. One more question. Actually, this is for Brandon or maybe Chair Compton. Do we have a running total of the new bikeways constructed this year somewhere?
We do, yes. 8
Excellent.
miles.
8 miles.
8 miles, yes.
Okay.
By the city, right?
By the city, right.
By the city. Do we have like a bigger, I mean, could I add up all of these and get to how many potentially this year?
Yes, 150, 125. Don't quote me on a number. I'll
okay.
make sure you get that number.
Thank you.
Yes.
That'd be great information.
Yeah, I'm just thinking even every meeting, if we're like, this is how many we did this year, City of Houston, this is how many everyone's done, that would just be great to have that number. in
Sounds
our head.
good. I'll make sure I have that in the follow-up email.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other? Sorry, Jessica.
Following up on that, just so we have an idea of where these are, and I know generally the spreadsheet indicates that, but can we map these?
That part I'm not sure about. Just because
Brandon specifically, can you map these?
low on manpower, but I'll when Dave returns, I'll bring that to his attention, see if we can pull something together.
Cool, thank you.
I'll just note that we do have the large share of these mapped at houstonbikeland.org on the interactive map. We do about a quarterly update to the GIS servers. It's hard to do them every single time one comes up. There's a lot of data cleaning and correction that needs to happen. But what you see on the page is basically everything that we presented on the list right there. And as we learn more, that gets updated roughly 4 times per year. You'll all remember Brian Smith. He was sort of our guru on that stuff. So we may have fallen a little bit behind, but the fruits of that work are available at houstonbikeplan.org. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter.
Hey, you learn something new every day, don't you?
Yes.
If there's anything else, we can move forward, Chair. Next slide, please. We're going to talk about no parking in the bike lane on the updates. Next slide. As of October 13, 2022, there have been 173 citations issued. That's a plus 38 from the last time we had this this update. $11,035 have been collected. That's almost a $2,000 plus from last time, and 18 completed trainings, which is 4 more from my last report. Next slide. Top 3 locations are pretty much the same. Actually, 2300 Polk has risen up with 23 citations. The top 6 new locations were 4300 Polk Street, 4500 Hardy Road, 500 McKinney, 5200 Hardy Road, 5300 Polk Street, and 600 Gray Street. And so you have a map there to see where those violations are. Next slide.
Excuse me a minute.
Yes.
So the numbers there, are those the totals since the program was initiated?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Is there another
Quick question?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I guess, it would be interesting. It seems like some of the locations where, not all of them, but some of them that may be kind of in the north and perhaps on the east may coincide with areas of low-income groups. So I was wondering, are there any considerations there where we have low-income groups that may have the parking fee be more difficult to manage just because of their income? Or I'm not sure if that's have been thought through, or if you guys have a layer that you can show kind of where those more lower income groups live and how that may affect them, or if there's any consideration to that.
So I imagine there are committee members who are familiar with this as well, so feel free to chime in after this. But it's my understanding that for your first offense of this, there is a diversion via an education that you can take, an online class. So that is one way that we're trying to lessen the financial burden on folks who first receive that offense. So if anybody else has stuff to add on that.
No, yeah, that's my understanding as well. I did have a question since parking management is predominantly in charge of this. The 9100 Galveston Road, we've talked about this before, being the American Auto Centers. Obviously, they're probably parking that. Has parking management maybe met with the business owners, and are they ticketing the car? Because then someone comes up, or is American Auto, were they paying it? Or can we, can they basically, being a habitual person, or can maybe more fines be done to that, meaning a little bit of the cooperation on that, because they seem to be the high producer each time?
That's a great question. We'll follow up with parking management on that. I think that's a good strategy to pursue.
Yes, I have a question regarding the issuance of the tickets. So it's my understanding right now it's the parking enforcement who issues the tickets. I've seen in other cities where actually citizens are empowered to document these violations, and they actually are rewarded with a share of the fine, and actually incentivizes people to kind of keep an eye on their own neighborhood and keep their own lanes clean. So I'm wondering if Houston would consider implementing a program like that, just to get more locals involved in, cleaning up their own streets, if that's even a possibility. because I think the risk you run into is certain high traffic areas get noticed a lot by the parking enforcement, but maybe, other slower streets where the bike lane could still be getting blocked aren't getting the same level of attention that they might get if it was actually just the residents who live there, almost like submitting a 311 call to enforce the no parking in the bike lanes.
Is that fine? So, I had discussed this previously, that the city of Houston has a volunteer parking management program for handicap. Obviously with COVID, this and that, I don't know how much training, but basically you go through a training, you get an ID, you get a number, you get a citation book, and this is done. You do not, however, share in any kind of profits. This is done solely to help clean up the streets and the big pet peeves of people who should not be parking in handicap spots. So I think that there would probably be plenty of volunteers who would like to, and particularly cyclists who are driving around, if they were themselves trained volunteer, will stop and just slap a ticket on something. But I don't necessarily know who would then be responsible for doing that. Just like, I think that the template's already set, right, for that program. So I guess parking management might be proposed to their leadership to offer that for the no parking in a bike lane. It would be some training materials, probably a little orientation, some paperwork. They obviously do vet the individuals, and there you go. To me, it'd be a force multiplier, but it is going to take someone to step up with parking management and institute that volunteer parking enforcement program, also to equip them to write citations for no parking in the bike lane.
Thank you. I would love a volunteer program like that because, as you are riding yourself in the bike lane, you see a car there. Most of the time you just go around it and you deal with it because you're not going to take the time to call 311 or make a report. But if there was like a volunteer training program where you could issue citations, I feel like it would speed up the process a lot. Thank you.
Could someone follow up and find with the contact information for parking management, and maybe Adam, if you wanted to, maybe you could initiate that discussion and you can copy me and Alejandro, what have you, and we'll certainly endorse that. I think it's a great idea.
Yep, I can work on getting parking management contact. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
All right, seeing no more, we can move forward. Next slide, please. All right, we're at the open forum where this section is for committee members to talk about all things bicycle that wasn't a part of the agenda. Public is not open and is not invited to speak at this time, just for committee members. So, Chair.
Anyone, Jessica?
I've got a couple things. The first is I think every time we go over, which bike lanes have been built, et cetera, and now that we have our new bike lane sweeper, I forget what the name we settled on was, it would be nice to get an update when we get together on where our sweeper has been. Just to, connect the dots a little bit between we're building stuff, we also want to keep it clean. The second piece is, so as I mentioned before, TxDOT has some grant opportunities available, and within the education subcommittee, we talked with Matt from TxDOT. I'm not sure if Matt is on the line, but I've reached out to him and he's agreed to give us a kind of an overdue explanation of their opportunities for grants and then the processes to apply for those grants so that everyone can know what the grants are for, how much the grants are for, how to apply, and what you know, what opportunities exist. So I'm still waiting on a day for that, but I think that would be great for all of us to be up to speed on. Sorry. Oh, Matt, you're on the line.
Yes, do you want me to say something?
No, you don't have to. But if we can get together and make sure to set a date, I think that would be great.
Yes, our grant process opens up in November, so this is the perfect time. So I can definitely give you an overview, show you some examples of project. I was talking to one of our grant projects over here, if they can even give a summary of what they're doing here to kind of understand the relationship. So yeah, we can coordinate a time and we can definitely give this educational session.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Did you have a?
Oh,
Well, I mean, this is a conversation. We can keep it flowing.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to ask one clarifying question. I think just because some of the, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the goal of this session would be if there's organizations or folks that we think might want to apply for some of these grants, we could invite them, correct? That could be something that they come and they hear about how to do it so that we can get out the word to folks and kind of give the overview that you said so that we can make sure we're taking advantage or we're encouraging folks to take advantage of these grants. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. So as far as what Matt explained to us, both nonprofits and city entities are eligible to apply for this educational bicycle education funding. And so if you know anyone that's say, you know, is operating a small nonprofit that supports people bicycling and is looking for some funding, this would be a great place to convene and learn about opportunities to get your program funded. And if you are interested, put your name in the chat and I'll be sure to include you in that conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have some people in mind, nonprofits specifically. I was looking up the name of the sweeper, and it's called Space City Sweeper.
That wasn't the most popular name, was
Yeah,
it?
was it? Yeah, there was so many other names out there for sure. Yeah. One thing since it's we did approve that 10% budget thing. I was like, mine was running on ideas. What can we do with that extra money? And I know Kevin, if you're online, he championed this idea of like getting bike racks on businesses and like marketing to them, like if they want to put some bike racks on their. That's something that's easily low cost, in my opinion. And I know, I think was it Harris Health or something that had like they were giving away bike racks at one point, like a couple years ago. So something we can think of is like that can be part of like continually of part of the budget is like promoting bike racks to, you know, anybody, any business or, you know, even residents or developers who want a bike rack, you know, just getting bike racks out in the city where people can like lock up their bikes. That's something that I get, it came to my mind when we were talking about like having the extra money. That's, I don't know what y'all feel about that.
Great idea. I think I tend to be way too much focused on what we're doing on the streets and trails and so forth, but beginning and end of ride facilities are, you know, leave much to be desired here, and they're a big factor in making this. And more than just sticking a rack out back somewhere too. I think something has to do with the location, and I don't know, is that addressed anywhere in as far as where to put, you know, where to locate bike racks?
No, we do require them in certain situations, and you can get a reduction in parking by providing a certain amount of space, but we do leave it up to the developers to figure out where. So, and that, yeah, sometimes.
Just wondering if we could maybe provide some guidance, because, you know, a lot of times, like I say, they are convenient, they're out in the open. Just to cite one that's a particular pet peeve is by the Ion. and which is ironically where Bike Houston is headquartered. And they have a bike rack right out by the street, you know, and I remember riding my bike there one time and I had the nerve to actually bring my bike into the plaza, and I was quickly corrected by one of the security people that it belonged out by on the bike rack. So just an example by a forward, you know, looking organization that, you know, I'm sure it wasn't intentional. I'm assuming whoever put it there was not a bicyclist, but you know, some guidance might be.
Thank you for that. At the very least, we can provide guidance. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I think we should look at as well. Because now like the livable now that the livable places mentioned something about like making accommodations for driveways. What can we do to kind of with businesses? How can we make them more alluring for them to kind of implement bike racks in like places that are really good? Because for cyclists, you know, uh, losing your bike out of business, like how are you going to get home afterwards, right? So you wanted to keep it in a spot that's visible where there's high traffic and not like out in a corner where nobody passes by, you know? So thinking about brainstorming and is like, how can we review that ordinance and kind of make that better so we can kind of, you know, encourage people to ride their bikes.
Is that something that we could address when the IDM comes back up for review?
Maybe we'll ask about that. We'll see where it can be in a code, along with, I think it'd be great just to have some guidance, you know, this is all of you who don't ride bikes, this is where you should put the bike racks on your property.
Yeah.
Just had a follow-up about the volunteer parking. So I'm not sure if it's Adam, if you were still on. The contact information would be Park Houston, but it's volunteer.parking@houstontx.gov is their email address. And literally all I did was Google volunteer parking. So it's on the Park Houston website. You then click the link for volunteer parking enforcement program, and it talks all about it. It's even, I think, the little application and on-demand online thing. So anyway, why not expand? Do talk about everyone likes to make money. So anyway, but that was just a good contact information if you'd like to email them. Again, volunteer.parking@houstontx.gov. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Okay. Pick one. I can't read them. It's Trevor.
Can you hear me?
I can't read. Oh, that may be Mike.
Oh, Mike. Okay.
Yes, regarding location of bike racks, the city does, as was mentioned earlier, provide for reduction in parking space requirements if there are bike racks being installed during a replatting or something of that effect. One of the things I was thinking of is this is an opportunity for the education subcommittee to maybe make sure that businesses understand, you know, that it behooves them to put them in places where, you know, it would best suit cyclists, as opposed to someplace in a back corner somewhere, so that they just, you know, meet the requirements that the city has.
Thank you, Mike. Sharon, is there another hand raised? I can't see from on this side.
Actually, yes, there are. I have Judith. I hope it's Judith V that has their hand raised, and then Anna Ramirez has had her hand up. I'm not sure if it's just there or if I need to lower it.
Oh, no, I have a comment there.
Well, Anna, can you go first, please? Your hand has been up for quite some time.
Sure thing. Thank you. Just wanted to mention to this group, this body, that The HSIP, the TxDOT HSIP funding is open now and will be open until the month of December. And that's where, you know, the city has been successful. I think it was maybe last year or the year before, getting like $4 million. And this is all like safety, very targeted safety improvements. One of the things in the Ped Bike Subcommittee was that there was a lot of interest from super neighborhood groups. There was a lot of interest from management districts. And one of the things that kind of was lacking, and I wasn't unaware, but Lisa pointed out to me, and I think she might be here on the call today, was that there is a process within the city of Houston, who is the eligible sponsor, where folks can reach out to the city of Houston about their safety concerns, like intersection safety concerns and other safety issues, as part of the city's vetting process to then submit to TxDOT for HSIP funding. And I don't know if that process maybe is not very well known. So this could be a great opportunity to maybe have a presentation on it and to share what the process is so that more folks know how to um, really focus or better address the safety needs that they have in their communities. So that was that one comment there. The other one is that the state TA call for projects is coming up and is targeted to start just in the month of December. So that's something that is also coming up. And if there's an interest, we could definitely have a presentation and discuss that as well. The one that is open currently, besides the one that that Matt was mentioning, is also the HSIP, the Highway Safety Improvement Program. So that's something that folks can apply now, and it ends this December. Thank you.
Judith?
Yeah, hi everyone. Actually, a couple years ago, Deborah Maxwell with the Houston Health Department, she was in charge of the bike racks because I know I got a couple of businesses bike racks, and it was fairly easy. I mean, they had that in the budget. All you had to do, make the application, they would deliver it. Someone had to be there to sign, and you would have to like bolt it down, do a survey, and send them a photo that you put it out, and that was it. They were free because I know that I don't recall, this was back in 2018. I got 2 bike racks for 2 different businesses here in the East End, and I recently tried to reach out to that email again, but obviously it got returned. It's been years because the bicycle rack at D&W, where it's a huge thing for cyclists to go there, somebody stole it recently, and I tried reaching out. So, I mean, if it was in the budget before, I mean, I'm sure it could be there again, maybe.
Yeah, that's the program I was talking about. It was in Harris. It was Houston Health Department E. Then they made a presentation on it. So if anybody like trying to look for it, and yeah, I don't know, maybe that's something like David would like kind of have to look at and see how that program was implemented and how, I mean, who like thinking about the funding is who would be in charge of that, right? Would that be Public Works?
I believe the health department had received a grant to implement that bike rack program. So it's just a matter of whether it must have been health dollar related grant money. So it's just a matter of finding the source of funding, and whoever the appropriate department is could implement it. Because health department, yeah, they handled the whole thing on that one. That was a good program.
Yeah, that program did conclude in 2019. So, yeah.
So Precinct 1 has now started a bike rack program as well, and they have tons to give out. But I know that their stipulations on that might be even more restrained. So something else to kind of look into. To follow up on the TxDOT grant, and of the grant that you were mentioning, the HSIP funding, does have to go through the city of Houston if it is within the city of Houston. The city of Houston deadline to apply for that is this Friday. If you're, I just want to, it's not cool for TERSs and management districts to know about grants like this less than a week before the deadline. So as much as we can make sure to, when money becomes available, give people an opportunity and not just mention it at the subcommittee meeting at HGAC. This needs to be beyond that so that everyone has an equal opportunity to apply for funds like this. If you are interested in making that deadline, which is still this Friday. Again, it doesn't need to be extensive. You can reach out to James Keener, who is the project lead for the HSIP funding distribution. And if you have my email, reach out to me and I can send you his information.
And
You
I
will
think I was just going to say, Jessica, I think to your point, this has been distributed many, I guess, months ago. There's always a way to improve distribution. But to your point of it not being cool, when at the PITBAC subcommittee, James Keener was the one that presented, a lot of the interest came because folks, and I was not aware that the city had a process, which of course they have to because they're the ones that funnel those applications to TechStat. So maybe this body could have a space before the HSIP, a month, 2 months before, even 3 months before, where the city can present what those deadlines are. That deadline that you mentioned this Friday is a City of Houston deadline. But that's a very important deadline or else an application does not go forward. So I totally agree with you that it's not very cool because if money is there, people want to be able to utilize it. And I believe last year, James at the PITBAC subcommittee mentioned that there was money left on the table. So if we can maybe, I don't know, this BAC could kind of schedule a presentation 3 or 4 months before, which is the HSIP is typically in the fall. I think that would be a big win.
So let me rephrase that. It's not equitable to not have everyone aware of money that's on the table at the same time. I agree that we can do our best to schedule those meetings, but we're really looking to you and others from TxDOT to let us know when money is on the table.
And I think it does get email blasted, and HJC also does a great work at helping email blast the region. But I totally agree with you that the more people that know, the more people can go ahead and email blast to their networks. But in this case, of course, since the city of Houston has a deadline that is prior to the states, and every every project has to be funneled through. I know Kevin was in that meeting, maybe Joe. Kevin was very interested, but they have to meet the city of Houston deadline first. We will continue to email blast this. AJC was very helpful in email blasting it too, but of course, if we can all send it to the networks and we can all know of other internal deadlines that are needed for projects to move forward. I think that would be cool just to make it equitable and truly accessible. Otherwise, the call is there, but if a management district cannot apply because it missed the City of Houston deadline, it's truly not accessible. So hopefully we can all continue to work together to make that happen.
Can you send us a link to the HSIP funding requirements and deadline?
Sure thing.
Is it the same each year, typically the deadlines?
It is. It is. The only thing that I'm not aware is what the, like I said, the City of Houston internal deadlines are. I did ask HJC to please coordinate a City of Houston presentation where they talk about these deadlines also 3 months ahead of the HSIP so that the community knows how to actually move forward with their concerns because it has to be through the city.
So I guess the suggestion, maybe we should make it an item for the July BAC meeting each year, right? That would
Yeah,
give you 3 months or
that would be
so
the suggestion. Mhm.
heads up on
Greatly
it.
appreciated.
But maybe you could make a note of that, Brandon, make sure we get
Yep,
that on
got
the
it.
agenda for that. And then who, they say the city administers it, which department and who is it within the city?
Uh, I heard that Ian, but I don't know if that's the case. I just, that's what I heard, but the city may know better.
Yeah, so this year, the HSIP applications are being managed through the multimodal safety and design part of Public Works. That's where Ian Lavacek and Lauren Grove and others work. I'm not as familiar with their process for coming together with those recommendations, but I know they've been working quite hard at it. I know that they did do some outreach with stakeholders on this, but obviously not everybody was spoken to. So if I could suggest, I think this would be a good topic for the next infrastructure subcommittee to discuss in detail the BAC's role and proper outreach for HSIP moving forward. But just wanted to clarify that we're not ignoring this program. We have a lot of contenders in to use this funding to improve safety in the city of Houston.
And I do remember Ian bringing it up at a prior meeting, and I can't remember if it was the full BAC or infrastructure. It was last year. It may have been around this time of year again, but I don't remember particular structure or procedures being discussed. It may have been. I just remember him saying, if you guys have some ideas, let me know, send them to me, but I don't remember any structure beyond that, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't. So just real quickly again, and Peter, you may need to bounce back up. Since if someone wants to try to get something in this week, would it be as simple as sending an email to Ian and saying, hey, I've got this crossing here. There have been incidents here. And, maybe even include a suggestion in that email. Can it be that simple, or is there a more formal procedure?
I can't speak to where they are exactly in, vetting and submitting these recommendations. My guess is it's probably pretty late to the game with a Friday deadline to try and get in another thing, because I know that they've been trying to prioritize from a much larger list. That being said, feel free to reach out to any City of Houston staff person. But yeah, I think not all of the right people are in the room today to speak accurately to the status of this particular initiative.
Okay.
And
Thanks,
just to note that the deadline to the state is actually in December.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're done with open forum. We move forward. Next slide. Announcements and events. Next slide. There you go. All right. We have a survey being conducted by TERS 5. Would like you to support, like the support of the BAC by making sure your friends and family associates know about this survey for the Memorial Heights Redevelopment Authority Mobility Study. In the follow-up email, I'll make sure this link is sent out to the BAC. Next slide. Also, the Bicycle Friendly Community Public Survey for Houston is available. Now that the application has passed, the BFC review process is officially underway. So we should hear back sometime in a few weeks. We look forward. They also look forward working with us in the coming months to help get a better understanding of local bicyclist experiences in the community. They want us to distribute out a survey as well to know how things are working within the community. We have a public survey, a public link there. And so the deadline is Sunday, November 6th, and I'll make sure this link is also sent out in the follow-up email. Next slide. All right, our upcoming meetings. The next meeting is our infrastructure subcommittee meeting on November 16th at 2:30, held at John B. Rea Conference Room, and also will be held on Microsoft Teams. Follow-up With that is the Education Subcommittee meeting, December 21st at 2:30, also in John B. Rea and also on Microsoft Team. And we'll meet right here in the Annex Council Chambers on January 18th at 2:30, and also will be held virtually. So next slide. If there's, before it was any other announcements that I may have missed from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you guys for your time and your service. And I guess
We will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Thanks.